You're not listening to me. There are other things that need to be taken into account here, like the whole spectrum of human emotion.
I'm not a killer. I'm just someone who wanted to make things right.
Advertising has us chasing cars and clothes, working jobs we hate, so we buy shit we don't need.
John, how did they get you out of Dedham, huh? However this happened, I'm gonna find a way to fix this, you understand me?
Shit. I think you know.
No, I don't.
The concept of unreliable narrators has always appealed to me. Ever since I started reading Lovecraft's works, the idea of a character whose perspective is more of an illusion, or at least a doubtful reality, I've always found interesting because you want to feel that the hero, that the main character, is right. This misdirection keeps us guessing in mysteries, or in surreal stories it helps us see a perspective that isn't quite what we believed, giving us a shocking twist. As a writer, this underlying story is always compelling to me, because not only is it something difficult to think up and plan out, but it's also something difficult to execute. For the purpose of this video, I'm not going to go into Lovecraft's works. I've talked about his works quite a bit on this channel. In different videos, I've often brought him up as one of my key inspirations for other novels I've written. I've always liked the idea of cosmic horror, this otherworldly being, one which could make a character insane. So instead of that, I'll talk about some other examples, but mainly stick to the core concepts. The very first one being misdirection. Deceiving the audience with misdirection is a fantastic tool, and it's employed by many writers in almost every genre. It allows us to present a skewed reality, where the reader or viewer is only told half-truths or outright lies. It's a feeling that many have felt, and sort of found it justified in the end when the twist is revealed. In Gone Girl, for example, Amy Dunn's unreliable voice twists the entire perception of who the victim really is. She manipulates both characters and the readers with her vision of the truth, making us question every assumption we've had up to that point. And the key is in its pacing. The misleading of the audience and the reader starts early on, gradually dropping hints that force them to reconsider everything they thought was true, ultimately leading to that twist ending. Misdirection is mostly used in mysteries because we want to keep the reader guessing in a mystery novel. You see, if a reader can make it to the end and have it revealed to them this amazing twist, it's a lot more enjoyable, a lot more impactful. However, they understand as mystery writers that their readers are intelligent. They're going to want to solve the mystery ahead of time. Sometimes they can't even help it. If a reader can figure out the twist way ahead of the curve, then the rest of the book is more of a slog through to the end, in which the reader knows exactly what's going to happen and who's involved, and they simply just need confirmation of that information. So, misdirection is used, leaving clues that keep them guessing. If done right, the intelligent reader won't be able to solve the mystery until the moment where it needs to be solved. Sometimes, if they are so smart, they can solve it still before the reveal, but hopefully they have read much of the book by then. That way they can feel even more satisfied with themselves for solving the mystery, and they won't have to slog through so much of the book to get that confirmation they need. It can be a tough thing to do, which is why some mystery writers prefer to keep many of the important details out of the reader's hands. That way, the reader can enjoy the characters and the story as it unfolds, without being compelled to figure out the mystery for themselves. But that is the most basic form of unreliable narrator. Having a character who's been fed information that could be ultimately wrong is the bare bones of misdirection. And then there are unreliable narrators where the character themselves is mentally unstable. It could be an American Psycho-esque character, one who is mentally unstable in the sense that they are committing murder, but at the same time seeing the world warp itself around that character to feed their delusions. Well, that is a classic example of a mentally unstable character, and there are many more to talk about. Speaking of crazy, are you insane? Let me rephrase that. Do you feel like you're going insane every time you do something moral and get your teeth kicked in? Chances are you're not insane, but have come to realize the world doesn't reward people like you. Now you don't know whether to join the teeth kickers in their downward spiral or jump headfirst into nihilism. If numbing yourself in vice or quoting Russian philosophers to your family members doesn't appeal to you, then there is another path. My new book, The Chaotic Path, gives the writer's perspective on what it means to be a hero in the modern world. If you're ready to graduate from self-perpetuated nice guy syndrome into becoming a full-blown man of value, then I wrote this book for you. And no, I'm not Jordan Peterson, but as a writer, I do know something about something, or I couldn't tie my shoes. The Chaotic Path is available on every major book site, as well as mine. Link in the description. But of course, it doesn't always have to be an insane character. Sometimes they could be ill, sometimes they could be drugged or even drunk, and as a result what they report to other characters, and as a result the reader, is more like an altered reality, one they saw while intoxicated or simply confused. Being this close to a character also gives us that greater sense of empathy, because we are now in their shoes. We can't help but side with them because we have only seen the story from their perspective. Our minds sometimes run away with us, sometimes delude us into believing one thing over another. How often has it been where you've been told you're wrong, and when you try to recall events, you can't help but see yourself as right? You often fight to protect this version of your reality because it is your own. Now imagine you're a character in a world where the situation is a lot more dire. You're being told information that goes against your reality. As the reader, we are stuck with this character. We want to side with them, and we can't help but feel that resistance to change, that resistance to your reality. And thus, like in real life, it's a fight to see who is right. Are we in fact following a character who is in the right, and there is people working against them to have them confused, disoriented, to have a certain perspective pushed over the truth? Or is the character themselves unstable, and as a result what they are seeing simply isn't what is the reality? A great example of this, and one of the cult classics that is worth mentioning, is Fight Club. In Fight Club we have a central character who meets a chaotic character. This one is called Tyler Durden. The plot twist is that this chaotic character is a figment of our main character's imagination, a secondary personality. It's a twist that is both shocking and brilliantly executed, with subtle hints throughout the story and the dialogue, not to mention the cinematography. It has us questioning everything, from what we've seen to what we've heard to what we understand what the character wants. Most importantly, it succeeds in recontextualizing the story. The final stage of a story with an unreliable narrator is in revealing the truth, whatever it may be, you need to recontextualize the story. You need to make sense of what has been presented. For example, if our main character had the true perspective, we need to contextualize why the other characters or the world space went against what they believed. The same thing goes with the other way around. Take for example Shutter Island, again another movie which I'll talk about the twist ending, so if you haven't seen it you might want to skip this bit. In Shutter Island we found out that our main character is in fact not a detective but a patient at the asylum. It wasn't a groundbreaking twist, but it certainly surprised many viewers. But in that ending sequence, it recontextualizes why our character is in the asylum. It explains the nightmares and events that transpire, the different surreal interactions he has with other patients as well as the staff at the asylum. And it does that fluidly and efficiently, so that way you get a greater payoff with its ending. Once reality is established, then we can end off the story neatly. Of course, that entirely depends on what you want to do with your story. You don't have to end off a story with an unreliable narrator with the truth. You can leave the reader guessing what actually happened. In fact, many of Lovecraft's works had the same result. We left with a story where we're not sure if it actually happened or not. These ambiguous cliffhanger endings are typical of stories with unreliable narrators. The idea behind them is it gives the reader an opportunity to recontextualize many of the other elements themselves, but also to decide how it ends. Sometimes this is done well. There is finality in the story, one that gives us a better understanding of what happened and leaves us thinking, okay, we are satisfied, but at the same time, those small details will keep us guessing, have us imagining what could have happened next. To speak personally on this subject, I have enjoyed writing many stories where the character is unreliable. Having a perspective that gives us a vague understanding of what is happening gives me as a writer opportunity to introduce new elements or twists with little difficulty. I can then establish clues after the story is finished if I feel there is a need to. Otherwise, I'm just given the freedom to let my imagination run wild. Sometimes we as writers write ourselves into a corner with our planning or our writing style. The best way I can explain this is with a train track. If our train track is perfectly straight and we suddenly turn to the left, our train is going to be derailed. However, if our train tracks weave throughout the story, it gives us an opportunity to change direction without too much change with our story's pattern. As a result, our readers don't notice that sudden change in the story, that sudden juxtaposition to what was happening beforehand. They can enjoy the story as it weaves around the obstacles that we could write ourselves into if we were so strict with our story. There are many ways to do this, and I believe the unreliable narrator is one of them. It not only presents us with an opportunity to talk about something that is far more interesting, a character who could be struggling with trauma or mental illness, or perhaps suffering from some kind of madness brought on by some antagonist. It gives us an opportunity to make adjustments to our story while adding depth to our character. Not to mention, it's something different. We don't always want to write a main character, a hero, who is so sane and ordinary that they come off as boring. And if you're looking for something else that goes against the norm, in this video I talk about stories where the villain is the central character.